to Richenda Van Leeuwen, who is the Executive Director of Energy Access at the United Nations Foundation, and she'll tell you about our next panel. Thank you.
Yeah, please. Thank you very much, Caleb, and great to meet everybody this afternoon. I'm here with two terrific colleagues from the energy access sector, Harish Hande, who's just a pioneer in the renewable energy industry, and I can call him a pioneer now that there's some gray in his hair, but he's still a very young guy, and Bill Lenihan from Off-Grid Electric, who's working in Tanzania and really showing the way that we can scale up in the developing world with energy solutions. We've heard so much about climate change here in Paris, and then we've really just had an amazing year this year in 2015 with the launch of the Sustainable Development Goals. But we really can't look at addressing climate change without focusing on bringing power to the 1.1 billion people around the world who still don't have the benefits from electricity in terms of helping them with their education, with income generation, with addressing environmental issues that they face at household and community levels, and also with their health issues, which is a big focus area here for the UN Foundation. But before all of that, and I'm going to turn to Harish and Bill in just a few moments, I'm delighted to say that we've kept a couple of important announcements embargoed for this particular group here in Paris today. The first of which we are announcing today with a great deal of thanks to the OPIC Fund for International Development, who are referenced here and with us this afternoon in the audience, as well as the Mott Foundation. But the release of the $1 billion investment opportunity for energy access, which is a showcase of 210 companies that are working to deliver decentralized renewable energy solutions to address energy poverty, whether focusing on education, whether focusing on household solar, community solar, and other renewable technologies as well. Basically, we have heard over the last 3 days some very significant announcements about new funding for renewable energy. Well, this is the response from the sector that says, we have the deals, we have the opportunities today. We need the funding to help us scale, to help us go deep to those areas where the market cannot yet fully penetrate. And so I'm delighted to announce the global release today of this. It's not just a book, it's an online portal as well, where in fact we've got more than $1.3 billion of deal flow that is being showcased, including about $500 million of equity requests and about $600 million of debt. So I'm going to give the high-level statistics around that, but really without further ado, I want to talk to two of the companies that are profiled in this launch. First, to turn to you, Bill, from Off-Grid Electric. I think you've got some news for us yourselves today. Off-Grid, for those who don't know, has really been amazing in terms of bringing scaled energy access to communities and households in Tanzania. Just starting, I think, 3 and a bit years ago, you're already scaling to, 10,000 households per month. So, Bill, over to you. What are you going to announce for us today?
Well, first, is that on? Yeah. First, I want to thank Richenda and the UN Foundation for having us here. Off-Grid, we do on-premise solar, so we're residential solar. We're installing these systems on people's houses, and as Richenda mentioned, we're doing about installing over 10,000, almost 12,000 systems a month now. And the off-grid challenge is a substantial challenge. Richenda mentioned 1 billion, 1 billion, 2 people in this world don't live on the grid, but another billion or more live on a grid that doesn't work. In Tanzania alone, the grid is down 12 days out of the month, so it's not a solution. And that's not a $1 million issue. That is a multi-billion-dollar issue for the world. And there's not enough venture capital and grant capital and impact capital to solve that problem. It does not exist. And so what we're going to announce today is that we're imminently close this week to closing the first off-balance sheet debt facility. It's a $45 million facility that is backed by African consumer utility credit. Now, this is a concept that's really well known in the Western world, the solar cities of the world, and in Europe they do it all the time. They back consumer credit in America, consumer credit in Europe. It's never been done in Africa before, and it's untapping a trillion dollar market opportunity for us to go finance these systems and solve a problem that, as I mentioned, is not a hundreds of millions of dollars, but $1 billion problem. And it's the only way. You got to scale the business and you have to scale the balance sheet. And the balance sheet requirements for an issue like this are very significant. So we're really, really excited. And what it does for us is it allows a template for other investors to come in, for government institutions, for development banks, and institutional capital to come in and impact and invest in the off-grid issue, the energy access issue. So what I wanted to do, I wanted to challenge financial institutions in the world. We've now got a template to go do this and do it in a big way. Come join us to go solve this worldwide problem.
Thanks very much, Bill. And if you don't really understand the value of energy access, if you just had surgery like me, imagine if the lights went out when your surgeon was operating on you, or they never came on, or if as communicators, in fact, you couldn't charge your cell phones. So those are some of the issues that we're facing when we don't have energy access. And if you don't know, Off-Grid Electric is backed by Solar City, and they're one of the, Off-Grid is one of the pay-as-you-go providers, which means that people in the past who couldn't afford solar home systems necessarily can actually pay week by week, month by month at what their household can afford. And on the left of me, Harish Hande is one of the pioneers of really being both a champion and a CEO of a company that has brought power to the very poorest families in India, and is the largest decentralized energy solar provider across India. And Harish, tell us how you see the need to go deep as well as the need to go to scale in terms of financing and reaching the 300 million people in India that still don't have the benefits from electricity and energy services.
Thanks, Regina. First, I just wanted to correct that. I was mentioned as the CEO of Solar City. I'm not the CEO of Solar City. SELCO, yes, I belong to an organization called SELCO, which we started in '94, basically to destroy the myth that poor can't afford technologies, poor can't maintain technologies, and the third myth was you can't run a commercial venture while trying to meet social objectives. So we'll hold perspective that we look at is solar is expensive for the rich and affordable for the poor, because as you go deeper into the society of any society, as you go and you break it into, poor is not a monolithic structure, it's poor, very poor, and abject poverty. And as you go deeper, the cost of energy actually goes up. And renewable energy makes so much of sense. And so the way we are trying to articulate it is that there's a wonderful connection between renewable energy and poverty elevation, and where the climate change is just a wonderful, beautiful added benefit. So rather than making climate change as a center issue, we make development as a center issue. And that's when we say that as you go to this 1.6 billion people who don't have electricity, but we don't look at 1.6 billion people who don't have electricity, but what do they don't have actually? Electricity is just a catalyst, education or health. How do we actually reach out to education or health and using sustainable energy as that disappears? And every kid starts teaching, oh, that's the only way to do it. For example, a very typical example when it's what I mean by scale up versus replication is where we have your solar panels on top of a school. How do you reach out to people who earn less than 25 cents a day and say, oh, solar does not work? No, it's not the question. What they need is 4 hours of light. So we put solar panels on the school and battery and light at home. Battery being less than the weight of a lunchbox. The kid comes to the school, into the school's charging station. If she does not come to school, light at home. So the mother says, I don't care whether you study or not, you go to school. So she goes to the school, brings in the lighting system, the charged battery home, and then you have 4 hours of light, and so you get educated. It's not about how do you subsidize it, how do you actually create that business model, or business model not in terms of profits, but business model, what is that missing link? Same thing in health, same thing in livelihoods. As you go deeper, even if it's somebody's abject poverty, you can actually create a solar-powered sewing machine where the financing is tagged on the products that is made out of the sewing machine rather than the cost of sewing machine itself. So now, if you can replicate these processes, sewing machines, silk weaving machines, basket making, education, health, and start looking at, forget solar, forget picohydro, you start looking at these verticals, and all these verticals start having sustainable energy at the base, you start looking at replication, and what it actually leads to its scale up. And that's the mantra that we are trying to get in. Forget solar, look at what livelihood, and where does solar energy make that dent, and then the scale up will actually happen. So we're reversing the whole thought process of scale up in a different manner, Richanda.
Thank you very much. So I think we don't really forget solar because the solar is a means to the end.
Absolutely.
But really the focus is on the sustainable development outcomes that we want to see as a result of this energy intervention. So we're going to turn over now to all of you for the Q&A. Obviously, we said a lot already in this panel, and opening it up to you for questions. And thank you very much to Bill and Harish for kicking it off.
Thank you, gentlemen, very much for coming. My name is Kyle Sunman. I go to the University of Denver. I'm an MBA candidate. And I guess I'd just be interested in both of you kind of working in lower income areas, if you see microfinance as playing a role in the development of renewable energy in developing countries, like, for example, Card Bank in the Philippines, and institutions like that.
More than microfinance, it's finance. Basically, for a lot of the poor, if you look at the poor, if they have to get out of poverty, it has to be asset-based financing. And asset-based financing, for many of our clients, solar is the second most expensive after the house itself. Like, you would not buy a car or a house on a credit card. What we are saying is that we need to create longer-term finance, 3 to 5 years, for the poor to actually afford the solar systems, rather than like short-term finance. So solar system becomes an asset for them. And once it becomes an asset, they become financially inclusive in the system. So financing is a very key. And how do you also create financial products depending on the cash flow of the client? For example, a street vendor has to get a 5-year financing with a daily payment because her cash flow is on a daily basis. A peanut farmer twice a year, a paddy farmer once a year, a school teacher once a month. So and the whole beauty of solar energy is that you can actually make it modular, both in terms of technology, but also modular in terms of how the financial products can be designed. So financing is the key, but it's not just short-term financing. It has to be a little long-term, where poor, rather than becoming consumers, become asset owners. And that's the only way to get people out of poverty. And that's and we believe that solar is the main way to get people out of poverty.
Yeah, we're the financing institution here. Is this on, by the way? I don't know if it is. We're the financing institution here. We're the micro lender, so the need is for us because we're basically signing them up for 10-year, 7-year, 5-year service agreements, and so we need to figure out how to finance it off our balance sheet because we're buying the product, we're acquiring the customer, we're installing it, and then they're paying us over time for it. We need to figure out a way to do it, which is why that structure that I just mentioned to you is so impactful. We're now finding lenders that are saying, okay, that African customer, utility customer, we believe in that cash flow stream, so we'll pay you for that now, and then you pay us back over time with theirs, which is done all over the world. It's not done in frontier markets like Africa. So we have to solve the problem. It's gonna be hard for them to solve it on their own.
So what you've just heard is you've heard about 2 different types of financing, and I think we're saying you need the consumer financing, and there are different ways to address that, and we've heard different ways from SELCO and off-grid, but we also need the enterprise financing, and that's what we've released today with this billion-dollar opportunity, is showcasing the equity, the project debt, the issues that we face around things like currency risk, being able to find ways to address that for these markets. As you said, frontier markets, these are not your typical emerging markets. These are markets that are often very, very challenged. So making sure that you have the right type of financing, structured in the right way, with the right terms, to meet the needs of the company, rather than only offering a certain type of financing that may be actually not exactly what they need. Please, at the back.
Hi, Jenny Lee with Global Progress Blog. What do you hope to see happen at this conference and moving forward to help spur greater deployment of these energy solutions for development? Thanks.
I'd love to see policy change, but I don't think it matters, frankly. And I think that'll be catalytic. What's been so encouraging to me, and this world is new to me in many ways. My background's more on the financial institution side, capital market side. But what's been so encouraging to me is there's two things this industry needs to really, that everybody's looking for, sort of the brass ring of investment opportunity. One, they want to see a product that delivers at a price point that's at or better than the legacy technology, and that is a product that is as good or better. And really, they want it as good and at the price point. That's what everybody wants. And what's great about a company like Off Grid, both of our companies, is we're delivering a better product at a better price point. We're taking kerosene out of the home. They're paying $7 to $9 a month for that kerosene and to charge their phone at the local store. We're giving them 30 times the light, and we're giving them a phone charger in their house, and it's the same price. It's a vastly superior. It's not like Solar City competing against a local utility that does a good job. There's no solution right now in these markets. The second thing, what I'm hearing, and this is also encouraging, is they want to invest in sustainable businesses. To solve this, the company's got to be around in 10 years. You can't give product and be gone. You got to be there to service the customer, live with the customer, and be sustainable, deliver profits. The only way you bring in this amount of money is you deliver profits to your stakeholders. Those two things. So if that momentum, the capital sources that are focused in that way, if that continues, I'll feel great about the end game for this conference.
What I expect from this place is I think we should stop discussing between developed versus the developing world. I mean, this is just an old rhetoric. I think we should look at rich versus the poor. And I think this is one planet. We should look at, because the rich in India are getting away with carbon offset, like burning. The poor in America are actually suffering because they belong to a rich country. I think we need to look at the poor versus the rich, and rather than develop versus developing, and start creating solutions for the poor in the world of 3 billion, 3.5 billion. We should remove this whole country boundary, because we can never negotiate. These are man-made boundaries. And you're negotiating on the environment. How can you be a nationalist and an environmentalist at the same time? I just cannot understand. So I think we should break those barriers. It should be rich versus the poor rather than, and then we look at sustainability at a larger level. That's what I hope we can achieve. Going back to John Lennon's song, Imagine There's No Country.
And coming back to the off-grid sector as a whole, I think what we're really hoping to achieve as well is saying that this sector is reaching maturity. There's a there. It's not just about grid extension. It's about these decentralized renewable energy opportunities that there is right now over $1 billion, and this doesn't represent the whole sector. We know there's a there. It's investable. It's going to scale. It's the time. It's opportune. And we really want to see the governments recognizing that, picking it up, and moving it along as well. So I think we have time for one final question. Laura in the audience, thanks.
Laura Stacho from We Care Solar. I'm wondering how you are imagining financing the most remote, most impoverished health centers where there may not really be a clear market-based solution, and how do we enlist both ministries of energy, ministries of finance, and ministries of health to work together when these have been so siloed traditionally?
Yeah, I think both of our companies can be helpful in that, because our model, I was just having a discussion with a big financial institution about this morning. Our model requires density. Once we have density in a certain market, at that point we can address that customer that can't afford $7 a month but can afford $3 a month or $2 a month. So once a company like ours builds a presence in a market, and we've got an economic model in that market that's kind of leveraged, we can go a lot of different ways with it. So I think there is actually a market-based solution in some way to that. You build this type of distributed solar infrastructure, and once you've got density and an efficient cost structure in that marketplace, I think you can take it into that market. Maybe not all the way, but it's part of the solution.
So I'm going to take moderator's prerogative with Harish's indulgence for a second on this one, because as a woman, I want to say that women are disproportionately affected by this issue. It is time that we stopped allowing a woman to give birth by the light of a candle that will burn her baby when it comes out. Midwives should not have to use a cell phone to light so that they only have one hand left to deliver the baby. Laura's been a great champion on these issues. I think first of all, governments need to prioritize it. We should not leave any health clinic left behind. We really need to get to universal power for health clinics. I think that needs to be a government priority. It needs to be interministerial. We need a combination of public financing very much in there alongside private financing, because we don't have the models right yet for it. And we need to make sure that when we've done the installations that we're maintaining those assets. The World Bank, the World Health Organization both recognize for off-grid areas, renewable energy solutions in the form of solar PV have a better track record than diesel and don't have the emissions. It's time we do that. Harish, final word for you.
Thanks, Richanda. You said, because this, I would challenge the word markets here, because many of us are products of subsidies in different ways, because we got education as scholarships, we've got health in many ways. I think if we have to look for the poor, let's not define the word markets there, because as for individual citizens of the world, for many of these poor, they have the right to get the health, and it's not the markets we define. The financial sustainability has to be taken care of by the government in many ways. And as Richanda said, decentralized solar so much makes sense, but health and education, we need to be careful when we use the word markets. In the traditional form of Wall Street or Bombay Stock Exchange, I think we need to look at financials, and that's where philanthropic money has to pour in if we have to look at basic life of a citizen in this world. That's what, thanks.
I know we're over time, but I think we have one person with who's very eager to ask one more question, which I don't want to cut off the discussion if we can.
Mr. Al-Herbish.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Suleiman Al-Herbish. I'm the Director General of OPEC Fund for International Development, OFID, in Vienna. We work with more than 130 developing countries across the globe. I wasn't really going to ask for the floor, but you know, when I see this gentleman from India, and every time I see somebody from India, I tell him, your country is in my heart. Why? Because in 1968, I was in India attending or exercising the first out of my country's assignment, that's UNCTAD 2. It was held at that time, maybe, I don't know if you were born or not. But anyway, the thing that is remain in my mind that you know, the conference took like more than 2 months and no word mentions about energy and the whole sustainable development or development that was discussed during the conference. And then when I came to take my new job, I was going through the MDG, and energy was not there also. It was missed, you know, the 8 goals, and there is no energy. So we in OFID started talking about eradication of energy poverty, and we introduced this principle as the missing 9th goal, okay? And in 2012, our Ministerial Council passed a declaration which I went to Rio and I announced it in Rio de Janeiro, Rio Plus 20. And in this one, which is relevant to what you are saying, Article 4 here is saying that we must be technology neutral in serving these poor countries. We should give them whatever energy they need, whether it is conventional or energy or renewables. But also, we are investing in renewables. Actually, for the last 3 years, 40% of our commitments was done for solar and farm. Now, we are very glad that now energy or eradication of energy is becoming number 7 in the SDG. But the SDG, as Mr. Ban Ki-moon said now, the energy is the golden thread, which is connecting the 3 pillars of sustainable development: social, economic, and environmental. So in serving these very poor countries, especially in sub-Saharan, we must be aware of this one. We should not really disturb the balance between the 3 pillars. We must give them whatever energy they need. Thank you.
Thank you very much. A great note to end on that we have Sustainable Development Goal number 7 now on making sure that we have access to energy for modern energy services for the very poorest of the poor all around the world. Let's make it happen. Thank you, Harish. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.